Well, it just happened that I scheduled Diana to speak on Memorial Day weekend when there's going to be a low crowd. She's very happy about that, actually. Yeah, so it's great to have Diana up here. You probably know her husband. He's also a pastor. You may have seen him around here before. And last night, you gave yourself a title. What was that title?
I have no idea.
You are 50 and Swifty.
Oh, yes. I'm going to make t-shirts now. Nifty, 50, Swifty.
There you go. She is the biggest Taylor Swift fan I've ever seen. So, all right. Well, we had a great conversation. I mean, I've known Diana as long as I've known Jan, for, a long time. So, but I still got to know some more things about her from talking. And this is the passage that we came up with to share for Scripture. And you probably recognize this. This is Jesus talking about worry. It's Matthew 6:25 through 27. Therefore, I tell you, do not worry about your life, what you will eat or what you will drink, or about your body, what you will wear. Is not life more than food and the body more than clothing? Look at the birds of the air. They neither sow nor reap nor gather into barns, and yet your heavenly Father feeds them. Are you not of more value than they? And which of you by worrying can add a single hour to your span of life? This is the word of God for the people of God. Thanks be to God. Well, we definitely have more we could talk about than can fit in the sermon time. We'll just do our best and get through this. But do you want to start by just sharing about where you're from and maybe your family growing up?
Sure. So, born in Tucson, Arizona. My dad, after college, got a job here in Kansas. So I claim Kansas. I moved here when I was 5. And when they told me I was moving here, they said, we're going to the land of Dorothy and Wizard of Oz. So, been all over Kansas, many different towns in my young life and later, but grew up around the Wichita area.
All right. And you've got one brother, right?
Yep, a brother, John, and he followed my dad into his career. They were both engineers in the airplane industry. My dad, which is so unusual, was at Cessna for 40 plus years, where my brother started at Boeing, changed to Spirit, went to Learjet, which changed his name to Ridgeview. Just so he's been all around, same job, just different companies.
If you've ever lived around Wichita, that's the story of so many people around there moving around. So when you were growing up, before that, let's talk about your school and your career. So when you went to college, did you have a sense of what you were wanting to do?
No, and that's why I was always jealous of my husband, who felt a calling to ministry even as young as high school. No, I wanted to go to college, but I have a very arty brain, and a lot of the things in education are more towards the logical thought, and so I tried really hard to finish that part, but also follow my passions for art. That means that I was a dance major. I have almost a BFA in modern dance, and finished up at Southwestern College with an art degree. Not the teaching half, just the art degree. So not knowing how that was going to affect me later down the road.
Music composition
There you
major.
go. Yes.
Yes. So share some of the jobs you've had over the years.
So while I was in college, we had the typical, I worked at a video store and a steakhouse, but using the art ability, I walked into Winfield Floral, and they hired me that on the spot. So I did a lot of floral industry, little towns all around Winfield, and thus even as before I had kids when we moved to Topeka. But I also, in Topeka, was teaching some dance as well, where I discovered I did not want to become a dance teacher because the littles lick the mirror, and I just couldn't handle it.
All right. And you did the stint of youth ministry.
Yes, I took my turn as a youth minister while Amy was born. And about 1 is when we realized that that is a big struggle to be a parent of a little and meet all the needs that you have. So,
Yeah. And we'll go back and talk about your kids more, but so you stayed home for a while, and then you went back out and did some other work.
Yes. You mean like after Kyle? Yeah. After my son was born, and he went into school early because he had some intellectual disabilities from a very young age. So I felt a calling back into help, not with him specifically, but as a para. So that landed me in the special ed route.
And you did that like for 15
Yes.
years or something, yeah.
15 plus years.
And now you work just down the street.
It's so funny that we're all on the same block, but yes, I work at Heartstrings, which similar gifts that I used when I was a para in the school system, but only working with adults so that they can have a J job that they are proud of, and so all sorts of intellectual disabilities, not just one. So.
And they make stuff and sell it. And Di took over the card making business, and she makes their cards are selling like hotcakes now because she adds her stuff to them. So
Thank you.
when you were growing up, did you think about being a mom? Did you want to be a mom? Was that a thing?
No, it was, I didn't play dolls and like, oh, this is the one thing I want to do. But when I got to the point where we were having kids, and I tell people, you just don't know what it's going to be like until you get there. And I just could not figure out how to give my kid to someone else. And so I went the stay-at-home mom route, and I never looked back. And it was great. It was a good choice for me. And I know I shared with you that in our young ministry, we had lots of role models and lots of pastoral partners that are both in ministry. And I saw the struggles that they had putting kids first. And I didn't say, hey, I'm going to be a stay-at-home mom. I said, hey, somebody needs to put the kiddos first, and that's what I'm going to do. So that's what I chose from then on out.
Yeah, that's great. So we decided we're going to talk about your kids one at a time because interesting things about both of them. So your first child was Amy. What was the experience like having your daughter?
So one of my favorite stories is how when we were young and our first child, we had her in a little carrier, and we were young with Mitch and Jan, and they didn't have kids, and we're like, they're not going to change our lives. And so that's how you end up playing frisbee golf with the little carrying thing, trying to pretend like the child hasn't changed your world. And you and your wife were very patient, so it was lovely. But that, was the first start of, growing into being parents, not just a couple. So.
I remember an infamous trip to Nebraska.
Oh, yeah.
The four of us in a car, and Amy between Jan and I, and she reached new heights of screaming.
Yeah.
The entire trip. It was amazing.
Yes. It was just, I didn't know someone could scream so long.
Right. I got to hold her when she was 3 hours old.
Yes.
So that's really cool.
Yeah.
As Amy grew up, you want to tell just about her now, what she's doing?
Sure. The bishop ruined her life when she was in middle school because we moved to Salina. And Salina, I've learned, is very purple. They are very connected to K-State, yes. They have a satellite, but they love bleed purple. And so she did end up at K-State. And she's now lived there longest in Manhattan, still is there. And she teaches at Junction City. Her husband also teaches at the high school. She's a math and he's English. And they're the bearer of my grandchild, who's Scarlett. I call her the joy bringer.
So how did it feel becoming a grandparent as opposed to a parent?
It's lovely. It's all the fun, and you sugar them up and give them Doritos and hand them back. It's just so much fun.
Understood. That's great. So, and you guys are going to see them this afternoon, aren't you? Yeah.
Yes.
You make that trip a lot.
Yes.
So, let's talk about Kyle. So, you were having a second kid, and any thoughts that were going through your mind when you were having a second kid, or how was it different?
Just that if we were going to, it was time. I think Amy was 4. when Kyle was born, and there's like some question about whether or not you should let the diaper phase fade out before. It has its pros and cons. So, but I thought, well, I know what I'm doing now. But of course, with everybody that's had to, it's totally different. They're a different human being, so it
Right.
was different from day one.
But you said it was a little more like
Yeah,
not hyper attentive.
he was go with the flow for
Right,
sure.
right.
Second board, yeah.
I hear that all the time. Okay, so let's talk about Kyle as a kid. When you noticed some issues with him
Yes.
and how you dealt with some of that.
Well, I was going along. I stayed home all the way and wasn't really noticing some of the things that a really good friend of mine, who's also a pastor's wife, and Lucy carries her name, and she was a principal, and she'd be there with my mom and dad, and we'd all be running around, and she said, I think you should get Kyle tested. And I'm like, okay. She's like, no, I think you should have your son tested. And he was like 1.5. I'm like, okay. And but she sent us down a path of intervention, which they've proven now with autism is one of the best and most wonderful things you could do is early intervention. And so he started speech therapy at age 2. And it was a good thing because he was nonverbal till age 4. So, and because he got into the school system early at 2.5 even, he was able to make it to kindergarten and was fully integrated his whole high school undergraduate career.
Yeah, and you mentioned that maybe what your friend noticed too. I mean, you wondered if he was deaf at first.
Oh yeah, the process of discovery with that is scary, of course. You have these expectations about your child, and that's not on your radar. But yeah, they tested him for cystic fibrosis. We thought he had hearing issues, and of course they could test for that, and he had none. You would holler his name right behind him, and he wouldn't look at you, but he heard Barney, and he would run to the other room and found out.
I would run the other way. I'm not a big Barney fan.
Yes. So, but we had a church couple at the time that also had an older child, I'd say 10, and we decided to go eat lunch with them and ask them our questions, right, when we were going through these diagnoses. And we kept saying, so we'll say Kyle's name and he won't look at us, but he runs to his favorite TV show, and they'd be like, yes, our kid does the same thing. And we'd be like, oh, darn. So they were very helpful in us working through that. What is Kyle going to do and be when he grows up? Because at the time, my son's 24 now, so at the time the only example of autism was Rain Man, the movie. So I just kept asking this whole time from each speech teacher, each specialist, what's Kyle going to be like? What's he going to do? What's he going to be? And the best answer I got was from his first speech teacher in grade school, which was, Kyle's going to be who Kyle's going to be. Because that's all they can tell you.
Yeah, that's good. And I love this analogy with Germany and Holland.
Oh, this is a popular one that is not my original, but it's a poem that we were given when Kyle was young and we were going through the process. I called it the A word because I didn't want to accept that he had autism. And so this poem's lovely, and it talks about you're going on a trip and you're going to Germany, and you've got the itinerary and you're excited and you've been planning, and you get on the plane and the plane lands in Holland. And you're like, but I don't want to go to Holland. I had all these plans to go, and I've got my itinerary. What's going on? Well, Holland is a lovely place. It's just different, and so you have to readjust. And that really did help, and that's kind of what we had to do with raising a differently developing neurodiverse son. So it took us a while, but we love Holland now.
And the last thing about his early years that I wanted to make sure you told was about Kyle getting in trouble in school.
Oh, yes. So, we tried to raise Amy and Kyle the same, which is impossible, but that's what you try as parents. And I remember the difference when Amy would get in trouble, we were frustrated and, wanting to help. But when Kyle got in trouble, he was passing notes at lunch. and he was passing it from one to the other, and he got in trouble. We had to go talk to the teacher, and we said, Kyle, you know you're not supposed to pass notes, right? And he goes, yeah, that's why you don't tell the teacher. And so we were so happy because Lion is a developmental stage, and he had gotten there. This was
I love that.
so,
Yes, Carl, you lied.
I know.
Just talk us through his high school years and beyond.
Yeah.
Just share some of his accomplishments and what he's done.
Sure, and I shared that he was nonverbal to age 4, so he worked really super hard. We had speech therapy and all the therapies we could get to him that he needed. And he also, like me, has the arty brain, so when he got to high school, there were so many things he wanted to do on that side that he couldn't do them all. He only took one actual art class, but he was in band and drama and was the mascot. He decided he wanted to do that, and that's like a big puppet, and he has such a gifts for that, and was amazing at the football games. He was gentle with the little kids, but fun and outgoing. It was just like his personality bubbled through when he was that character at the high school. And in the drama department, probably his biggest role was Lurch and Addams Family. And if you're familiar with that musical, Lurch just kind of does his lurchy thing and doesn't speak at all until the last moment of the last part of the musical, and he breaks out into this really deep solo, and it's just lovely. And the drama coach made sure that I came to rehearsal because she wanted me to be prepared for how wonderful that was going to be, and it was definitely a highlight. And that speech teacher that we had when he was 2.5, I invited her, and his senior year he was in a play, and she was able to come and witness him do that thing in high school. So
That's amazing. And he did a really good job. And you had no idea he was doing that. Yeah.
No, he didn't share any of that.
Right,
It's
right,
like normal teenager, yes.
And he also did like community theater, like the.
When he was in 4th grade, one of his wonderful teachers discovered that when he would read in a voice, like Darth Vader voice, it was a lot smoother because with his blockage, his neurodiverse blockings, when he was a character or when he was singing, it goes around that, and so it was a lot smoother. And so she said he might really enjoy acting, and it took him a while, but yeah, he started acting when he was in grade school. So.
That's so cool. After high school, you had to be wondering what would he do next?
Yes, and I remember going to the high school and saying, okay, what's next for our kiddo? And the only thing they had to offer him was an internship through the local hospital. And I was shocked. I was like, this is it? There's nothing? I mean, this cliff, and I know a lot of parents in this situation experience that your kid in special ed can stay until 21, but then it's very difficult to find something after. And so we didn't know where he was going to go, and there was lots of worry. But we found, and I'd love to talk to anybody who needs it, thinkcollege.net is a website, but it's also a place where people can find all of the programs for a neurodiverse kiddo to experience the college life, because there's so much more, as we know, that you learn in college besides just going to school. How to do your laundry, how to get along with a roommate, how to have a job and go to class. Yeah, so we found KU has a program called Transition to Post-Secondary Education, and that one fit my son perfectly. And so he ended up at KU for 2 years, proving that he could do all those things and go to class.
And ended up with a certificate, which was a little
Yes.
bit of a challenge to find, but we'll move past that.
Okay.
But he got that certificate, and then what? It's
Well, we were one of those families, which I'm sure you've heard about, that got our little window because Kyle came home in 2020 for spring break and then never got to go back. And so his stuff was in the dorm, and they spread us out, and we had our 20 minutes, and we ran in, threw it all in a big bucket, and ran it out. And then he came home and finished online, which was the struggle. You talk about with an art certificate, he was really close. And so we had to work through the school, the program he was in, to get the College of Arts to give him that certificate. They didn't want to do it. So But we got support, and he did, so hopefully the next person who's in a situation can also get that art certificate.
Yeah.
But we didn't know after that where he would be doing B, so.
Yeah. So talk briefly about where he is now and the program.
So during that, okay, what next? Where is he going to go? We saw Lester Holt did a special on a young man with autism who wrote a note to employers of the world, said, I'm a young man with autism. I would be a great employee. Please hire me. I can draw. And he had an example of his drawing. And out of that, somebody signed him up for a program out in California called Exceptional Minds, that their mission is to take kids on the autism spectrum and train them to work in the animation and VFX industry. And so he started taking some online classes to see if that would be something he would enjoy. And that art stuff just came right out of him. And he is now in his second year of a 3-year program. And he is working on 3D animation and hoping to get that all-exclusive internship to prove also that he would be an incredible employee. So he is
And he's
on
living
his way.
on his own?
Yes, he is independent, living in LA with another roommate whose mom is so happy to have him to be the driver to take them both to school, and his mom lives all the way out in New York. And
the roommate has autism.
yes,
Yeah.
and I know it's difficult to talk about extremities, but Kyle has, his autism affects him mildly, and his roommate has a lot of this stereotypical stemming and loud vocalizations and stuff. And so he's working with the neighbors when his roommate's loud, and he's taking on a wonderful helper role in that situation, as well as the school. And the school, this semester, he got to go to Disney Studios, talk to actual animators, people who are in the business doing that, and a gentleman with autism who wrote the story, Book of Life. I don't know if you know that one. Similar to Coco, if you saw that cartoon.
Okay.
And so, but he shared, the process, and they have people from the industry come all the time and talk to them on top of the training they're giving them. I know.
It's amazing. And we'll talk about Kyle in LA and, the challenges and stuff. I'm like, any 25-year-old kid going to LA on their own, I'd be worried about. So it's been amazing. So now you're empty nesters. How does that feel?
We have good friends that came to the empty nest before we did, and we were concerned, especially like when Amy went to college the first time. And we were like, oh, is it okay? Are we going to be okay? Is she going to be okay? And they're like, it's lovely. I don't know what you're worried about. It's wonderful. It's going to be so much fun. You'll love it. So.
And that's turned out to be true.
Yes.
Yeah. So can you share a little bit about your faith on this journey?
That I struggle with the worries. The scripture you picked is probably my mantra of opposite, because I'm still, even to this day, worried about what's Kyle gonna do this summer, what's he gonna, if you met my mom, she's a worrier, and if you met my grandma, we specialize in worry. It's an art form for us.
Right, and so you've still found ways to kind of lean into God in that journey, even amidst the worry. I mean, I've seen that.
Yeah, it's as if even though all the worry, God still says, well, I'm still going to take care of this, and then find a way. So.
I told Di I was going to say this. I'm going to compare her to Mother Teresa now. So I don't know if you know this, but Mother Teresa, after she died, they found her diaries, and she was overcome with worry and doubt her whole life, doubting if she could do this, and it didn't keep her from being faithful and responding from her faith, and that's what I have seen in you. I give Di Mother of the Century award. The way that she has advocated for Kyle every step of the way. Both of them have. Barry has too, but Kyle would not be where he is without the support of his parents, and so I'm proud of you. Yeah.
Thank you for that.
All right, well, that's about all the time we've got anyway, so let's thank Diana for coming up and sharing.